Let's bring in Solomon Elimimian now, president of the CFLPA and their executive director, Brian Ramsey. Are we doing them together here? I believe we are. Or are we starting with Saul? Anyway, there we go. Hey, morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning, Rod. How are you?
Good morning, Rod.
I'm very well, thanks. I'm going to start with you, Brian, if you don't mind, to maybe bring greetings from the Players Association, if you don't mind. We've already, today's the first cut-down day. We're, 8-9 days into training camp. From your perspective, how have things gone?
I think it's been an exciting time. There's been challenges, no doubt. I mean, our membership were affected like so many throughout the pandemic and are excited to get back to work. We're excited to get the season started and get in front of our fans across the league. As I said, no doubt some challenges to start, but we anticipate working through them and having a great season this year.
What, Brian, is your thoughts on the blown Achilles? Is it literally the flavor of the year, or is it like just a freak thing? We've had these, right, or is it more to it than that? I mean, it's your job to look after the players. So what have you found out about that or discovered about that?
Yeah, I think there's more to it. We're not seeing it across every team. We've seen it in specific instances. We've seen it. We've done research in other leagues that have restarted. Obviously, this was something that was top of mind for us, and we pressed upon in the months leading up to this season. And it's something that's important for us. Continuing to investigate this, the instances that have happened, you mentioned just before we got on, the unfortunate incident in Winnipeg today. So this is something that's top of mind for us, and we don't think should happen. We understand that there's an injury rate in professional football, but these specific instances shouldn't be happening as they are.
Thank you for that, Brian. Very interesting. And Saul, I'll ask you some of these same questions, but first, how many people asked if you were coming out of retirement when Larry Dean went down? Come on, let's be honest. And did you think about it, by the way?
Well, yeah, not just with Larry going down, but I had a couple, teams prod and asked if I would consider coming back. And when I made the decision to retire, back in February, it was one where I was comfortable with my decision, and I'm ready to move on. When I looked at my career, I was very fortunate to have played for 10 years and played on wonderful teammates, and it was something I didn't really consider because what I'm doing now, I'm really enjoying as president of PA, but also doing things on the real estate side and entrepreneur side of things. So it wasn't one I considered. I spoke to Larry. Just kind of gave him some little advice on his Achilles. It's something that I had back in 2015. But I'm happy with where I'm at.
Good for you. I'm glad to hear you say that. Have you talked to, well, obviously as the Players Association president, I'm sure you have talked to those players about their Achilles injuries, and the fact that you went through it, I would think would help them. Can you tell me how their mindset is? Because I just felt so terrible for them when it happened.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate. It's a tragic circumstance. I don't think it should have happened, and our job as associations to kind of put safeguards in place so injuries like this doesn't happen. So, I spoke to Larry, I spoke to Coach Dickinson, and, just trying to understand like how it happened and more so how do we prevent something like this happening in the future. In regards to Larry, I just told him, just have the right mindset and, pretty much it's going to be hard for the first 4 months because you're going to be mobilized, you're going to be limited in what you can do. But as soon as, the cast comes off, the boot comes off, all the work really is with you, strengthen it and, add in, flexibility with it and just really pushing it as hard as you can because it is an injury that's very tricky. Some players don't come back from it. I was fortunate to come back from it, and it was really the off-season work and the grind that I put into it. And it was probably one of the greatest achievements that I've had because I know how hard it was. But Larry's a champion. He's a great guy. He works hard. I've known Larry for many years, and you know what? He'll come back better than ever.
Brian Ramsey is the executive director of the CFLPA. Solomon Elimimian is the president. And Randolph Zor is watching in Ontario. He says the Achilles used to be a career ender, not anymore. And actually, that's a good point to bring up, Brian. You've been around, played a very long time. I guess that's a blessing in a way right there. I mean, you remember those knee injuries, ACL, MCL, PCLs all used to be career ending too. Thank God it's not as serious as it used to be, or at least medical technology.
Yeah, definitely. Medicine has gotten better in terms you don't hear of that career-ending knee injury from something that we experience now. You can come back in a shorter amount of time. But I don't think that takes away from the impact that this may have on a career and for sure this season for those individuals, especially when there's protocols that can be placed in to reduce these from happening. As Solomon said, the goal right now is to make sure that this doesn't happen again. How do we instill that change so we're not seeing these rash of injuries ever again?
Brian, how is the mood of the player base here as we are a week into training camp? Because listen, you know that I talk to the agents almost every day. I mean, there were some massive pay cuts and so forth, but the guys want to play ball. How are they as a collective group? Just excited to play ball, or is there a bit of a chip on their shoulder that they're playing for a lot less than they signed for?
I think there's a really good understanding in the membership and unity in the membership, in that we've been able to work with the CFL the last 2 years to ensure that we had an opportunity to play football and get back to work. And we work closely again this year, as we did last year, to ensure that we took into consideration the challenges the pandemic had. And our membership understood that. But there's definitely a unity within our group right now that understands that there needs to be changes moving forward to ensure that the league grows and we grow together.
What is your take, Brian, on the retirements, by the way? We saw another one today with Mike Filer. He played your position. Just what is your statement on the rash of retirements? I think we know why it happened, but you don't like to see guys walk away from a career when it's happened this way.
No, you don't. And what we've found is that a lot of times our members don't have the opportunity to make that decision. So in part, when you see that happening, you're grateful that the player is able to make that decision on their own to walk away from it. But you also understand the reasons in this instance why they're probably doing that. And that's the year away from football. And as Solomon stated when he talked about his retirement, you start to begin to work on things outside of your playing career and quite quickly. So we have seen a rash of it. We expected a rash when we talked to the membership. It's been a challenge. They've had to figure out in the past 16 months other means to earn revenue and start that life after football. And what we're finding is a lot of players right now are making the decision that that's in their best interest to do that.
Solomon, what's your take? I guess I would throw you in that group of guys that retired here within the last 12 months. What are your thoughts on them all sort of hitting all at once? You were ahead of a lot of these guys, but again, not great for the league or the players. You don't like to see this.
Yeah, the last 16 months we faced a lot of challenges, and I'm just proud of the work our association, did, navigating these challenges. One of the things we did was provide resources for our players, whether it's, job opportunities, educational, opportunities, or just, financial literacy. We have in our program where guys can learn about financial literacy or other things. And, to Brian's point, guys had to figure out how to survive. And, the trouble with the league that we had was there wasn't enough clarity, I think, from the league and, from last year, or even up until this year in terms of, when guys were supposed to get back on the football field and with families. You got to make decisions best for your family. And, looking back at it, guys chose that the opportunities outside of football, I think, were greater than the ones football presented it. So those things should be, cheered and encouraged. And, Mike is a player rep. Mike Fowler's a player rep. You alluded to, he retired today. He's he's going to have a great career outside of football, and that's what we all want. We want guys to use football as a springboard to, life after football, because, the life after football is going to be a lot longer than our careers that we have. So.
Hey, Brian, just before I let you go, do you have a statement like you'd like to make on behalf of the CFLPA, or have we covered it here today?
No, I think this has been great, Rod, and we encourage, as I said, there's a number of things ongoing for us right now that have our attention. Obviously, the season ahead, we've got collective bargaining again coming up this next spring, and there's some topics that I'm sure we'll be back to discuss with you here in the short term.
Well, you know where to find us. The floor is always open to you guys. I appreciate the time here today, and enjoy the football.
Thanks, Rod.
You bet. Brian Ramsey, Executive Director, CFL Players Association, and Solomon Elimimian.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.